Good evening and welcome to the Third Tier Show. This is a brand new show focusing on all things League One, brought to you myself, Tom Mayne from the Seasiders Podcast, and Ben, who we all know from the Cods Vlogs. Ben, welcome. Congratulations on reaching 6,000 subscribers recently. For those that don't know, tell the viewers and listeners about yourself and your time supporting Fleetwood and your channel.
Good evening, Tom. A pleasure to be here with you discussing one of the best leagues in the world. I'm a Fleetwood fan. I go home and away with them. Been tough this year doing, streams instead of those vlogs, and I've been really enjoying it. Different but unique. Got into it from an early age when I was kind of fell out with loving football, if I'm honest with you, from an early age. Got back into it, loving it now, and I'm nearly on over 300 games. So hopefully more to come very, very soon, Tom.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're also joined by two great guests today, but I think Neil's having some technical problems, so it wouldn't be a first show without that. But we'll introduce you to Matt, who runs a great YouTube channel called Gills In The Blood. Matt, how are you?
Very well, thank you, mate. Good to see you again, and you, Ben.
Very good to see you, Matt.
How's it been during the last time we spoke and watching Gillingham from the comforts of your own home and iFollow?
Unique, like Ben said, I think, hasn't it? It's not the same. It certainly doesn't replicate, that getting up and leaving at the same time and seeing the same people and walking the same walk, parking the car in the same car parking space and having the same chats and debates about why X player's been dropped and why a player's starting in his place. And it's great that we can carry on watching on iFollow, but I think, like Ben said, I can only reiterate it can't come soon enough getting back into a stadium and doing it all properly.
Yeah, I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully come June or sort of next season we can return back in numbers, or in Fleetwood's case is about the 200s.
I'll buy me late.
Yeah, so talk us a bit about Gillingham and how you became supporting them, and a bit about your channel, because I know you've got quite a lot of followers and loads of Gillingham fans love your channel. So speak to us about that.
Been a fan since 1989 was my first game, so I'm giving my age away a little bit here. My dad took me. It was league football. I started off going to a club called Sittingbourne, which is where my mum and dad live. It got me into it at sort of the age of 6 or 7, and then first Gills game was 1989. I don't remember anything about it other than we won 1-0. It was against Northampton, I think, and then started going properly sort of mid-90s. On a weekly basis with friends from school, when I was allowed to go out on my own without parental guidance and get the train, and it was good fun back then. You used to be able to bunk the train, and I think you did the whole day on about a tenner, and that was lunch, something on the way home, programme, match ticket, the whole lot for under 10 quid, which sounds stupid now. I've done it in 2021, but it was great fun, and it weren't a bad time to start supporting the Gills. In fairness, I think Tony Pulis had just taken over, and Paul Scally, and Mr. Scally gets a lot of stick now, but I'll always be in the camp that says if it wasn't for Paul Scally, we wouldn't have a Gillingham Football Club to moan about and to support. And up until about 2003, we were absolutely brilliant to watch. We was punching above our weight, and we spent 5 years in what's now the Championship, and it was nationwide League Division 1 back then, I think, for our the more senior viewers that are watching tonight. And it was a great time to watch Gillingham, and like I say, we were punching well above our weight, going to places that you could only dream of, and we got to the quarterfinals of the cup, and it was just a wonderful time to be a Gillingham fan. And obviously since then it's gone back to being League One and League Two, and I've got no issue with that. That's where we're meant to be. We've been about for 125 or so years, and we've spent 5 years of that outside the bottom 2 divisions, so it tells you where we should be in the football pyramid. And in terms of the channel, was invited onto another Gills fan channel that's now defunct a few years ago, and decided it was something I wanted to do. Didn't want to step on any toes in terms of taking over there, so I got my head down and had a think about it and launched it. I think it was 8th of February 2017, and 4 years and over 500 videos later and 1,500 subscribers. It's mental where it's taken me and who it's allowed me to speak to. And I say it all the time, I can't thank the people that support it and watch it and retweet and share it, because otherwise, if it's not for them, it's just me rabbiting into a camera 3 times a week. So really enjoy it. Still love doing it. Like I say, and Ben said, it's not the same doing it sat at your dinner table watching on a laptop as it is being in amongst the fans in the rain and men. But fingers crossed it'll be sooner rather than later, and we will all be back doing it properly.
And talk us a bit about Gillingham's season. How is your current sort of run of form of games? And you've been a bit stop-start with this season so far, and that sort of represents your sort of league position somewhat. But when I've watched you, and when I watched you against Blackpool, you've played, relatively good football, and you're quite street smart. I think Steve Evans has brought that to you. So talk to us about your current form, your league position, and sort of your informed players, and who's impressed you most this season.
Yeah, consistently inconsistent. I've said that on a few podcasts and a few of my own videos recently. Unfortunately, that's why we're 15th at the moment. We're 4 points off outside the top 10, I think it is. I think the playoffs will be probably out of reach this season. We'd have to go on one hell of a run from here towards the end of the season. But, there's still plenty of football matches to play, and there's still lots of points to play for. But I'd imagine we've probably got to take 7 or 9 points from the next 3 games to give ourselves any type of chance. And that's going to be tricky against MK Dons, Ipswich and then Fleetwood. So, but yeah, last 10 we've picked up 1.5 points per game. So it's, you base that over a 46 game season, it's 69 points. So as you're around sort of 8th to 11th, which wouldn't represent a bad season for the Gills. It's again, it comes back to that's probably where we are in terms of the footballing food chain. We're predominantly a mid-table 3rd tier side, and that doesn't mean that I don't want us to do better and get promoted. But I think if we got promoted with this squad, we'd end up doing a Wickham, if not worse. But yeah, in terms of recent results, I think we've proven that when we're at it and when we play to our full capabilities, we can match anybody in this division. We've beaten Crewe at home 4-1 in the last few weeks. We've gone to Charlton and won 3-2. I know everyone goes to Charlton and wins 3-2 at the moment, or scores at least twice. We went to Sunderland and picked up a point. We went to Portsmouth last Saturday and drew 1-1. Probably should have won it based on the second half. But trouble is, for all them games, we then go and chuck in a Burton at home and lose 1-0, or draw 2-2 at home to Rochdale, or lose in the last minute to a poor Wimbledon side, and that holds you back. And it's always been a case of sort of 1 step forward or 2 step forwards and then 1 or 2 back again. And that's why we are, which is 15th. But in terms of individuals at the moment, John Akindi's been really good for a good while now. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists in his last 9 games. So he's having a real positive impact after a pretty slow start to his Gills career. I think he's been here just over a year now, and he's not scored nowhere near the volume of goals we wanted. But there are signs that he's just starting to play himself into some really good form, and fingers crossed he can kick on between now and the end of the season. I think if he gets around 10 or 12, then he's had a decent campaign. And Carl Dempsey, I know Ben was quite vocal about a certain Callum Camps at the start of the season, and he started off like an express train. I've got no issue with that. He's gone a little bit quiet since the middle of November, I think, because Camps hasn't scored a goal. But for me, I find it staggering that Joey Barton decided that he'd let Carl Dempsey go on a free transfer, because just week by week he just gets better and better, and he influences games on and off the ball. He's our captain. He's not a loud shouting, old school Tony Adams type skipper, but he leads by example in terms of his performances, and he's got 4 goals and 2 assists in his last 9 games from the middle of the park, and I think it's 6 goals in all competitions throughout the season, and I think he's another one that will probably get to double figures. And yeah, so cheers to Ben and cheers to Fleetwood for Carl Dempsey on a free, because like I said, I find it weird that he was allowed to leave on a free transfer. I don't know whether something happened between him and Joey Barton, but whatever it was, I don't really care, to be honest, because it means that we've managed to get him in, and he's been absolutely brilliant.
He is very good, Kyle Dempsey. In my opinion, he is one of the best midfielders in League One. One thing that I only had with Kyle, he didn't have the freedom to go and get into the box and score goals. In my opinion, that was down to the gaffer, Joey Barton. They had a fallout, and what he's done at Gillingham, Evans has basically said, go and express yourself, and he looks like that player he was under Ros in his first year. The boy's got talent, good passer of a ball, good attitude, and when things are going well, Kyle Dempsey's one hell of a midfielder in Skyvet League One.
Funny you say when players go on loan, because we got rid of a certain Michael Nottingham at the start of the season because he wasn't playing well with Piggott, and they were like Bambi on ice together at centre back, and we were conceding goals left, right, and centre, and they're making individual errors. And he goes to Accrington Stanley, and yes, the small squad is probably having its effect now, but he's been unreal with them, and they've kept lots and lots of clean sheets. So it's just weird how that sort of, when a player goes away from the club,
he had a shocker at our place, didn't he? Nottingham.
He's cleared it out for the corner before
the first corner. Yeah. And I think he got hooked just after half time, didn't he? Or at half time, because he was absolutely shocking. Yeah, and then he's gone to Accrington and he's on the verge of the playoffs. It's weird how sometimes it just fits, doesn't it?
Yeah. In terms of league position, where do you think you're going to finish? Do you think 15th is fair, or do you expect to see yourself higher?
I'd like to think we can probably get a bit higher. I think in terms of the big teams now, we've still got to go to a couple of those right up there. We've got Peterborough away still. We've still got Lincoln away, Hull away. But like I've mentioned, them games against Crewe, Charlton, Sunderland, Portsmouth, anything above them ones that I'd say are the really good ones in the division. I think we've been competitive if we turn up. So 2 at home on the bounce this week. If we can pick up 4 points from them, then that helps. And I'd like to think we can, creep into the top half. I said 8th at the start of the season. I'm not sure we'll get that high. I think there's too many teams above us that have got games in hand and are playing well as us, if not better. But again, if we get in the top half, the top 10, I think it represents another good season for Gillingham, considering, and I don't want to sound like Steve Evans, we don't have the biggest budget in the world. We have to, scrimp and scrape and get free transfers in. And I know the salary cap helped us in the summer and probably allowed us to get the likes of Dominic Samuel, Carl Dempsey, Jordan Graham and the such. But I think 10th to 12th would be a really good season, considering it's been a weird campaign for everybody.
Yeah, it certainly has. And any news coming out of Gillingham in terms of sort of future transfers or anything to do with the club, or have you sort of been going along?
Steve Evans has confirmed this afternoon that it's unlikely we'll add anyone. I know he was trying to get another striker in to cover the Dominic Samuel injury, but it looks like we've sort of given up on that. He's mentioned that there was one player he was looking at who's decided he thinks he's going to go Real Madrid, but that's probably a little bit of media talk as well, and you take it with a pinch of salt. But if we don't get anyone in, I'm happy with the group. In terms of the quality, we all know that we need a different type of striker, and that's Dominic Samuel. He's been injured since the middle of December, unfortunately. And if we have to roll with what we've got, then we do it, and we'll keep battling hard, and we'll keep working hard, and we'll keep trying to ruffle a few feathers like we've done over the last few weeks when we've been to Fratton Park and the Valley and the Stadium a lot. And it's being a club, I suppose Ben will probably say the similar type of thing, is when you support a club the size of ours and you go and mix it with the big boys, so to speak, and those that think they shouldn't be in this division because they're too good for it or whatever, then I think you enjoy it just a little bit more.
There was some interesting news about Samuel today. I saw you sort of message out that he's potentially back in training or running on grass, wasn't he? Or sort of.
He's put a little cryptic Instagram story up, that said not too far away. So hopefully it's only another month, and hopefully we're getting back for sort of the last half dozen, 8 games potentially. But obviously, we won't see the best of Dominic Samuel now until next season, I'd imagine. But then the other issue, as we don't know who's got what in terms of contracts, I think the only one that we disclosed last summer was Robbie McKenzie, and that was because his agent put it on Twitter. So I'm a little bit sceptical in the sense that I think a lot of our players are only on 1-year deals, which is a little bit concerning. Will we be able to keep them?
Yeah, you've got some individuals that can certainly play in this league or potentially higher. So fingers crossed you can and make a go of it next season. Ben, I'm just going to come to you. How's Fleetwood season's gone so far? Obviously, you started really well, but it's been a bit of a roller coaster recently. So talk us about your current form.
It can only be described as not what we'd hoped, really. Barton left the football club on the 4th of January. We were 3 points off the playoffs. It wasn't footballing matters at all. It was things happening behind the scenes. They had a fallout. Barton wanted to pay for a player's wages because Pilly didn't want to pay for that particular player's wages. We've got 2 decent goalkeepers in Coleman and Cairns. Coleman came back and Cairns was fully fit at that time. He wanted to go with Luck Violet. Barton left the club. Then now we've got Simon Grayson, who I know a couple of Blackpool fans will be watching and thinking, laughing at us. But 6 games so far, 6 points. I would have liked maybe 8 or 9. We've only lost 2 games. Have we been playing well? A couple of games, I thought we've been terrific. I'll be honest with you. I thought on Saturday we were the better side. I thought against Charlton we were the better side. But against Sunderland away, I thought we were bullied. I'll be honest with you. In Plymouth away, we were bullied. So we're very one-dimensional under Grayson. It's long ball, balls down the side, hanging there what you've got and trying to on the counter-attack exactly what he expected. Back 3, 2 up front. So it's going to be a difficult one. Will we have enough points to stay up? Yeah, I think we will. The start we had, the middle pick where we beat Shrewsbury and Gillingham away and Oxford, that's going to be the bits that keep us up. We'd have to go on maybe a 5 or 6 game losing streak to be really dragged in, but you never know in League One and anything can happen. So 15 games to go, I think it is now, or 14 games to go. I think we probably need 16 points to stay up. So if we can average a point a game, I think we'll be okay.
Just had a comment here from Sean. No cutting edge from Fleetwood, especially without Madden.
Spot on. Matt mentioned it before, Camps hasn't scored since November, that's 8. And then when Maddie wasn't scoring, no one was scoring. We missed Ched Evans a lot. Ched Evans, in my opinion, we missed more than Joey Barton. Evans, his hold-up play, he can just hold up the play and give you a like, and Maddie can run the channel. And Evans, I know this would sound crazy, Evans would get other players 5 or 10 goals without getting an assist, just from his hold-up play, just from his nature. And we're missing that a lot at the moment. So hopefully that we can replace him in the summer. We just need to get through to the summer, scrape through, and then rebuild with a different manager, hopefully. But Madden is a clinical striker. I think he's got 8 goals now this season. And Fleetwood, we were scoring loads of goals now. I think we've only scored 13 away goals all season. 4 of those against Bristol Rovers back in November. So there's still a lot of work to be done.
Mixed messages when Grayson sort of first took over. I know a lot of Blackpool fans found it funny because we did reap the benefits of Grayson a little bit at the start of the season he took over, but it's only sort of disintegrated into what I can only describe as a puddle of mess of tactics and not know what he's doing, and he didn't bring any excitement to the football club. And as you know, Ben, what and Matt sort of relied on passing the ball to Feeney and getting that ball into Nangele. There was a bit more to Nangele's game and our game, but overall he's never going to be good enough to take us up. So what are the feelings when Grayson took over? Because it was quite a big managerial change for Barton, considering his, he was your first club and he was quite a big name at a smaller club.
Well, for me, obviously, I saw how well Grayson did early on in his career with Blackpool. And for me, if you're a club legend at a club, you should never go back. And just don't ruin your reputation. You're seeing high there. I know some of your fans didn't like him when he went to Leeds and obviously when he went to your rivals Preston. But when he came to Fleetwood, in my opinion, I was like, oh, this is a bad move. Do you know what I mean? Like, look at his record. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Sunderland was a basketball club. Bradford haven't been doing very well of late. And Blackpool was a tough job with the high expectations, but he didn't match them. So for me, he struggled. I still believe there's better out there than him, but if he can keep us up to the end of the year, it'll be, for me, thank you and goodbye and best of luck for the future. I don't care how we play now, as long as we stay up in League One. It's the nature of the business. We did it 3 years ago with John Sheridan. He got 6 wins in 13 games and kept us up pretty much. So if Grayson can get another 5 wins from the next 15 games, I'll be happy, but hopefully he won't be taken on full time because he just doesn't excite me. His interviews don't excite me. He's quite boring. He's quite low toned and low energy, and you don't want that at a football club. Barton had that little bit of drive that you thought, say something. I'm excited, and Steve Evans has it as well. His interviews, you listen to him and you laugh at it, and you think you're excited for the future. Grayson doesn't have that at Fleetwood.
Players this season, at the start of the season, when you did our preview show, you were really excited about Callum Camps, and Kenny Dougal sort of kept him quiet, and since then he's been quite quiet as well. So I know it's been you've had a poor run of form, but who's been your most consistent player and probably your most key player this season so far?
Consistent player, I'd have to go with Callum Connolly, because Connolly is a centre half, and I don't think he made many mistakes this year. He scored a goal against Sunderland, which got us a point. Captain, lead, everything that you want in a captain. Every other player, in my opinion, has had off games. Madden went a streak without scoring. Vassell's 1 goal in, I think, 11 games. Rossiter was injured for a bit of the season. Camps has had 15 games without a goal. Morris has been quite poor. So Conley has been probably one of the only ones that I thought all season. He's pretty much played every minute of every game, and that since he's joined the club on deadline day. So that shows, in my opinion, how much of an influence you are on a player. He's gone into a back 3 now, done very well. So if he can keep performing, and he'll get experience on his belt, and he's been very good since joining on loan from Everton. We had him last year under Joey, very, very good, made a difference. And in my opinion, he was a key link to get us into the playoffs. People talk about Mackay and Lewis Gibson and Harry Suter, but he was the one that was the golden boy, in my opinion, scored a couple of good goals. He puts his body there, and you need a Callum Connolly in your trenches because he just goes to war for you. So I'd say Callum Connolly.
Awesome. Moving on to the news this week, but even today, it's been a bit of a crazy situation. We'll start off with the more expected news of Paul Lambert. 108 games, only winning 35 Ipswich, which surprised me because they got off to a good start. They drew 26, but they eventually lost 47. So it started okay for them. That it was a steady, or a lot of Ipswich fans say a rapid decline for the Tractor Boys. What are your thoughts, Matt, on him being mutual consent? But I for me, it's tracking.
Yeah, well, it was leaked, wasn't it, a couple of days ago, all over social media, that there was this takeover coming in from an American businessman who I think runs a sports team out there as well. And it's I don't think it's come as any shock, has it? I think it's probably more of a shock that he lasted this long. I know did he not take over in the Championship though? So I think a lot of them defeats were in the Championship when they were in free fall. So that probably gives it a slight, to defend him a little bit, a slightly sort of harsher outlook. But they've simply not been good enough in League One. And I remember we played them last season and they beat us 1-0 at the Priestfield. And I thought we gave them a really good game. They had one bit of quality in the game and we switched off at the far post. Unfortunately, it cost us the point that we probably deserved. And then we went to Portman Road Boxing Day and picked up a point. Probably should have won the game, created the better chances. And you just got the impression to me, and I'm probably going to get absolutely battered if there's Ipswich Town fans watching this, but you just got the impression that they thought they were too good for League One and that they had a divine right to just turn up and roll teams over, because all they done after that game was whinge about the fact that we had a player that wanted to go and take off throw-ins. And I just thought it was a little bit sort of disrespectful to not just Gillingham, but all clubs and also the division itself. You're in this division for a reason, and that's because you're not good enough to stay in the Championship. And you can make all the excuses under the sun about, oh, we're too big for this and we're too good to go down. Well, you're not, because the old cliche comes out all the time. The table doesn't lie, and that's why they got relegated out of the Championship. You sort of compare them to like Sunderland fans, who I think on the whole have embraced it, or not enjoyed it, I wouldn't say, because obviously they want to get out of League One as well. But I think they sort of understand what League One's about a little bit more and respect that they're in this division for a reason, and that's because they've been mismanaged. And I think the quicker that Ipswich as a club sort of really realise that, then they'll probably end up doing a little bit better. But they're in a decent position still for all the sort of, bad blood towards Lambert and Marcus Evans, the owner. They're still, within a shot of the playoffs, and you never know if Paul Cook is the man, and it looks highly likely. His track record speaks for itself at League Two and League One level. He's got Wigan promoted, he's got Chesterfield promoted, he's got Portsmouth promoted. He'll come in and he'll rattle a few cages and he'll get them playing. And is it worth a couple of quid on Ipswich Gate crashing the playoffs if Paul Cook takes over?
Yeah, well, just to answer that rhetorical question, I believe so. I think he like Lambert, to be fair. You think Lambert had his time at Colchester and Norwich, etc., so he should understand the league a bit more. But I think you're spot on. I think I'd like to say Blackpool did well against Ipswich, but they took 6 points of us this season, and we played terribly in both games. But as an overall, as you say, they had that aura about them that we are Ipswich, big stadium, used to be in the Premier League, etc. And I don't think they found the right rhythm and routines to keep it consistent. I think Sam said earlier in the chat that it's all about consistency in League One, and you don't have to be the best team in the world, but if you can grind out results and be there or thereabouts, you'll be there. And they started off like a house on fire, but then just faded away, and the excuses sort of come rolling in. They've done the same again this season, but they've been nowhere near sort of good enough. And they say it's the owner's issues and stuff, but on paper they've still got a good enough team. And I think if Cook was in charge at the start of the season, they'd be in the top two, because they just need that sort of manager that cares. And I don't think Lambert cared come the end of it because of what was going on behind the scenes. So your thoughts, Ben?
For me, I said Ipswich weren't a good side. They weren't a good side. They'd only beaten two sides above them in the league, and that was the last two games against Hull and Doncaster. And, they started all right this year. I thought the pandemic actually kept Lambert in a job. They were on a bad form, if you remember. I think they lost to Peterborough and Fleetwood, and then the season got curtailed. Now, doesn't surprise me. New ownership's coming in. Paul Cook coming in. Very good manager. He's turned clubs around like Portsmouth, Chesterfield and Wigan. He'll do the same at Ipswich. And like Matt said, worth a couple of quid getting Ipswich into the playoffs because they've won the last two games. He'll get them fired up. He'll change the mentality. I really do fancy Ipswich for the playoffs this year now.
Yeah, I do too. I think what Cook will bring them in his 1-20 to join them now. So I think it's all but sort of signed, sealed and delivered. Sam's just said there, Surprised Lambert lasted as long as he did, and I think COVID had a lot to do with that. I think because there was no fans, he didn't have as much pressure. He wasn't even taking sort of the pre-match and post-match interviews. We left it to the assistant Gill, who's taken over for tomorrow's match, and they've got sort of a big away day tomorrow as well. So it'll be interesting how they fare with the assistant in charge. But maybe they'll release the news tomorrow to give that bit of a morale. I saw some players, Caden Jackson, like the post that he's been sacked. So clearly he's got some sort of issues with, well, he had some issues, with the squad, and he wasn't playing the best players. So it's no surprise that Lambert's gone. The more shocking one I've left till last is waking up to see the news that Darren Moore has left Doncaster. I know they were in a sort of poor run of form at the moment, but they're still in the playoffs and they're in a decent position if they sort of picked up again. But he's a manager that's gone higher than the championship before. When he took over at West Brom, he won 3 of his 6 matches there. He got them playing. He's a much more organised manager. He's got a good win ratio at Doncaster. And to me, there's no surprise he's gone. It's just the timing of it. I don't know how you feel, Ben.
For me, they won 9 out of 10. They were on fire, weren't they? Then they only lost to Shrewsbury in that run. Then bumped into us. I thought they made a couple of mistakes, lost the heads, and then we beat them 3-1. Since then, they've only got a point in 5 games, and that was a decent point against Hull. Moore, good manager. He did well with a good West Brom side, wrongly sacked. Came to Doncaster, settled them down, got them from a decent mid-table side into the playoffs. A bit like what Joey Barton did with Fleetwood. And I feel he would have got them into the playoffs given more time, but he's gone to a Sheffield Wednesday team that are struggling, more expectation there. It's going to be interesting to see how that folds out. I think the best example you can give is Nathan Jones, how well he did at Luton, and then they gave it to the assistant manager. They eventually did go up. He struggled at Stoke, now back at Luton. It's going to be interesting to see how he copes. A decent Doncaster side to a shaky Wednesday side, and they could be in different leagues next year, Wednesday in League One and Doncaster in the Championship.
I think he'll have enough to keep him up. I think, well, we'll see, because Championship's a really hard side, and with the points deduction, I think they've done well to be where they are. But it's certainly going to bring something different to Sheffield Wednesday, an organisation, good attack and football. Yeah, Sean said they're losing Ben Whiteman, massive for Donny. Yeah, he's a quality outlet in League One, so it wouldn't have had a good effect on sort of their current run of games. But I think no doubt on my mind, Adam 1-1 and getting 2. Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions, but I think if they knew, or he knew, he was being approached or something was going on in the background, there was noises being made. They're now 22nd in the form guide. I think if they knew, then for me it's going to have a detriment to the squad and how they're playing. But we'll see who comes in from. I know Butler's taken over tomorrow as assistant, and we'll see how they do. They may be rallied up now. He's left them sort of where they are, and they want to prove a point. How do you think they're going to cope with it, Matt?
I can again, apologies, Doncaster fans, if you're listening, but I can see them falling off the edge of a cliff a little bit. And going back to Darren Moore, though, I don't understand it at all. I'm not going to lie. I can understand historically that Sheffield Wednesday are a huge club. Hillsborough's a massive football stadium. Again, historically, it's one of the big grounds in the English game. But they're a basket case at the moment, absolute basket case. How many managers they had this season? I mean, Tony Pulis, our ex-boss, has gone in. He's lasted about 3 months. They've had a couple of caretakers, I think. They're effectively like Bristol Rovers of the Championship, and it's only a really, not a poor Wickham side, because that's probably a bit harsh. And I know there's the argument about what happened last season, but Wickham, we knew were going to struggle in the Championship because of the size of the club, and the fact that they're still competitive at the moment, I think, still speaks, makes me speak highly of Gareth Ainsworth. But they're the only team below Sheffield Wednesday at the moment. I know there's a points deduction, but I'm looking at their form. They've lost their last 4. They've scored 2 goals in that time, and they both came against Luton when they were 2-0 up, and then the wheels fell off. So in terms of confidence and know-how and how to get over the line, there's none. The only win in that time is against that Wickham side that I've already mentioned. The game before that, they got absolutely battered by Millwall 4-1. And the one before that, they flipped the form on its head and actually beat Bournemouth. But like Ben said, invariably you could see them swap places, but I don't think they've got enough about them to stay up. And I don't think that's anything to do with Darren Moore. You're expecting him to go in there and work a miracle with a dozen games to go. And I think that's really harsh. But fair play to him, because if he's doing that and he does get relegated and has that on his CV, then he's taken a massive chance, because he could have sat tight at Doncaster, games in hand, could have got in the playoffs. But even if they'd finished sort of 8th, 9th, 10th, it wouldn't have been a poor season. So in that respect, I respect him. He's made a big jump. He's made a big call. But I can't see it working out. And for the life of me, I can't understand why he'd leave a steady club like Doncaster to go there when they're an absolute freefall. Gary Monk, I think, was he there at the beginning of the season? I mean, I don't take loads of notice in the Championship. So they're on to their 3rd or 4th manager if you include caretakers. And that's never a good sign as a manager going into a football team that's going through a manager every 11 and a half games on average. It can't be good for anyone, and certainly not a fan of the club, I'd imagine. But in terms of Doncaster, like someone's just put up on the chat, it's was a big loss losing Ben Whiteman. I don't think it affected them straight away. It has since. I had them down as sort of mid-table start of the season, and they surprised me. But I think they could end up falling out of the playoffs quite rapidly now. I think it's 2 big losses to cope with, and Darren Moore, I think, was really loved by that football team as well, and the fan base. And I just think it might be something that they struggle to cope with in the immediate future, and they might have to rebuild again in the summer.
Yeah, keep your comments coming in the chat, guys. It's really good to see. But we've had Tim say they're still a big club. To be fair, get it right when the ground is full. Sean, I agree with Sean in this case. I think it's one of those situations where, just reading here, I just think it's one of those you can't say no to simply because, as Tim said, you get it right and the potential is massive. I think they're, despite their owner, I think they're still a huge club, and he would have been drawn into that, going to see the stadium and maybe meet the owner who, probably is a bit mental, but he probably sold him a dream as well, to be fair. And there might be the expectation they are going to go down, and they say your expectation after that.
That's my point. He's already sold 3 other people a dream this season. So.
I do get that. There's 2 things for me. It would have been, maybe at Doncaster, he could have said, look, I want a new challenge and this would be my time to shine. I think if he stayed at Doncaster, they didn't go up, where does he go next? That could have gone. As Chris said, it's going to be a big pay rise for him personally.
That helps as well. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, money does talk. And I think if they do go down, maybe he has been promised he won't get sacked, who knows, but he'll get paid compensation if he does. And if they said to him, if we go down, I want you to finish top, otherwise your time's top of League One, otherwise your time's gone when fans are back, then I think he's willing to accept that risk. And with the current form they're in, I can see why. It's taken the job overall. And for me, it's one I would probably say yes to over where the position I was in. But Doncaster, in terms of the table, they sit 6th. Ben, did you want to talk us through sort of the table and where other teams finished at come the end of this weekend?
Yeah, like I said, there's been some great results in League One this weekend, and the likes of Hull getting a great win, and you can see they've moved up in the playoff places, and Peterborough 6 wins on a row now, 1 loss in 14, and before that they lost 4 out of the previous 5 games. And Lincoln finally knocked off the perch. Portsmouth dropped points again against Gillingham, and it's going to be an interesting one because loads of teams are dropping points at the top. So I think there'll be about 5 or 6 teams in the race at the end of the season. Ipswich have raised the gap about 3 points off the playoffs. So close now. Doncaster have slipped to just nearly outside the playoffs, still in them. Likes of Sunderland as well. They're on the march again. A draw the other day, 4 unbeaten. Plymouth again, 4-3 over Lincoln, unbelievable result. Last minute as well. And then you go down. It doesn't look too pretty for the likes of Fleetwood, who 2 wins in 18, but you go across the Vale Coast to Blackpool, who are the 2nd in the form table. They're unbelievable away. They're scoring goals, and they look like they're going to get into the playoffs with the games in hand if they can keep going. Bristol Rovers, another side that got the first win under new managerial guidance, and Joey Barton. I think he'll keep them up. I really do. And if you look at the bottom 4, they've all changed manager this year. Northampton without one, they're down in my opinion. Burton changed under Hasselbank, got another win against Rochdale. Rochdale struggling, Burton on the rise. So loads of good results this weekend, and it's going to be an interesting one to see where the teams end up. And I'm just wondering about you, Tom. How do you think the top 6 will start to bend in now in the next few games?
I can't answer that question because I think the current run of games for a lot of teams, especially sort of Blackpool. If Blackpool can continue their current run with the games in hand, like you said, they could sneak in. Ipswich, if the new manager could sneak in, Oxford are a decent side, they could still go up. And Plymouth under Ryan Lowe they're playing some awesome football as well. I think the likes of Accrington, Stanley and Doncaster might sort of change the places with teams like potentially Blackpool and Crewe, Charlton, if they sort their act out. I don't see that happen anytime soon though. So for me, it's a really bit of a gamble. I see Peterborough obviously continuing to walk the league, but any team in the top 5 can make a challenge for that top spot. Pompey are a decent side, Hull are a decent side, Lincoln continuing to sort of shock a lot of people in League One, but their results recently haven't been great. So for me, it's a bit of a gamble. Like I said, I don't think Accrington and Doncaster will be there come the end of the season, but I couldn't tell you anyone in that sort of any team from sort of where Blackpool are who's going to end up in those playoffs. I say Bar and Doncaster and Accrington, because they're all decent sides and they're all relatively big squads and they're all picking up results here and there. And if you look at that form table, there isn't a lot of red. So yeah, it's more the bottom I can see deciding for itself. But the top sort of 12 for me is going to be a roller coaster. The only team I see coming up, not because I support them at the moment, if they keep their consistency, is Blackpool, purely on the basis they have 4 games in hand over some clubs and they pick up sort of 6 to 7 points from there. They put themselves back in the mix. Lose 2 or 3 of them, that they're going to finish mid-table. A bit inconsistent, a bit like Gillingham. So yeah, that's my thoughts on sort of the top 6. Not very consistent message, but at the same time, I think it sums up League One. I think if, like I say, you look at the form guide, apart from Doncaster, it's a difficult one to call.
I agree. And there's so many good teams in there. Blackpool on the march, Fleetwood on the down rails, and a couple of defeats and they could be dragged in, couldn't they? And but going on to Peterborough, I think Peterborough, in my opinion, are they splash money every year, don't they? And you can just look at that form table. It's unbelievable, really. And they're on the march, top of it, 6 games, 6 wins. And do you think this year, Matt, this is the year people go up? Because the chairman's heavily vocal on Twitter. He wasn't happy about last year's season ending. This year, the top of the league, he said on Instagram, he's keeping his cool. Top of the league, good players there. They've replaced Ivan Toney with Johnson Clark-Harris, who's one of the most informed strikers in the EFL right now. Is this the year that people go up, Matt?
Yes. Yeah, it has to be. I listened to, the D3, D4 podcast and they were speaking on their weekly episodes today. I listened to it on the way to work and they've said that Peterborough are almost going arse about face this year because they usually start like an absolute train and then they drop off and the wheels fall off and they end up finishing 6th or 7th and just missing out. But it's very hard to find chinks in the Peterborough armour this season. They've got so many good options, whether that's the 11 or the bench. I mean, for instance, they beat us 3-1 the other week. And if you'd watched the first half, you'd have thought we were the team that was in the top 2. We thoroughly deserved to lead at half time. And it maybe could have been more than the 1-0 that we got through John Akindi's penalty. But then they bring on the lad Dembele. And, I have opinions on him again. And he was talked about at the weekend on Quest because he's gone over rather easily in the last couple of minutes against Wigan. And for me, it's not a penalty. But he has all the ability in the world. And that's what Dara McAntony does really well. He buys these rough diamonds out of non-league and they polish them. And then they sell them on for a big fee. And then they just go and get another one. For me, well, we might get onto it in a minute, but for me, in terms of ceilings and how good they can be on their day, they're the best side in the division by quite a big margin. I think Lincoln are probably the most rounded side I've seen in terms of consistency all over the park. But see, in terms of ceilings, Peterborough miles in front of anyone else that I've watched this season, and they beat us 3-1, and it was a weird game because I said it was based on the first half, Gills didn't deserve to lose, but based on the second half, you couldn't begrudge Peterborough 3 points, and I just think that they're gaining momentum at exactly the right time. You only have to look at them form tables, last 8, last 6, last 10, last 12. They're top of all of them. The only thing that might hinder them is that horrible farmyard that they call a pitch. But I'd imagine they're getting used to it a little bit more than other teams who only have to come there once every so often. And it'd be very hard to see anyone stopping Posh this season, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when you look at their team and their attacking outlets, and I think Neil spoke about last time, the start they had, and if they're put under pressure, they start to crumble a little bit. But I think they've learned from that massively, and they're scoring goals for fun, and they've got some incredible firepower out there. And so, and Ben, I agree, they do splash the money, but they sell so well, and they reinvest it to the point where they really should do in League One. And for the past 2 or 3 years, they should have gone up, and they just haven't got the bottle. But as Matt said, I don't think they're going to rely on anything else other than automatic this season. Comment here from John. I'll put it to you, Matt. Which side have you watched this season have surprised you guys positively and negatively?
Accrington positively. I think they've been absolutely brilliant. John Coleman just continues to defy the odds season after season. And you want to talk about small budgets, talk about Accrington, because they do it on a shoestring. And he continues to find good players again. The chairman, is it Andy Holt, I think it is, who's very vocal on Twitter, as one of the best chairmen in the Football League. I'm not just talking about League One, I'm talking about the whole of the EFL, and he's very vocal, but he talks a lot of sense, and he supports his manager really well. They spend what they can, but they don't do anything daft. And we all talked last season about the points per game thing and the Wickham story, and if you're a Wickham fan, it was a wonderful fairy tale. I think if Accrington managed to gate crash the top 6 this season and get themselves into the playoff mix, I think it'd be probably tenfold compared to the Wickham story, wouldn't it? And we've played them twice now, so I wish them all the best and hope that they do gate crash the top 6. I think it'll be an excellent story, and it's a wonderful underdog story. In terms of the other way, probably have to say Fleetwood. I had them to finish. Let me just double check quickly. Where did I have them in my pre-season predictions? It's a lot higher than where they are now, Ben. I'll give you that for sure. Second.
Wow.
I had Fleetwood to finish second. I thought, in terms of the squad, I thought if they got over the playoff hangover, they were well equipped to go and have a real good go at it. And obviously, they've lost Joey Barton, and like Ben says now, it's just about getting through to the end of the campaign and making sure that they're still a League One side next season, and then starting again, whether that's with or without Simon Grayson. I think I know who Ben would prefer. It's not Simon Grayson, but if he keeps them up, then he's done what he's meant to have come in and done. And the other team I'd say is probably Bristol Rovers. I had them quite a bit higher than where they are. I had them in the top 10. The only thing that was holding me back in terms of putting them even higher was Ben Garner. I said that there was massive doubts over him, and he got found out. Paul Tisdale got found out, and it's only now that it looks like they've got a manager that's capable of, getting them out of trouble. And I'm confident Joey Barton will get them out of trouble. Obviously, Ben knows him a lot better than I do. But in terms of, another one like Paul Cook, he'll give them a rocket, he'll give them a kick up the arse, and he'll make sure that they play for the badge. And for me, there's 4 worse teams than Bristol Rovers, and I think they'll be fine. But yeah, so for me, Accrington in a positive sense, and Fleetwood and Bristol Rovers in a negative sense, unfortunately.
It's funny you mentioned that John Commons continues to fight the odds. Is an absolutely incredible manager, and a comment from Sean just a second ago said he does all the scouting himself. So
yeah,
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you look at the likes of their front two, like Colby Bishop from, I think it was something like National League North, or it might have even been lower. You might be able to help me out, Ben, more on that one. Obviously, you're up that way. And they got Dion Charles in this year, who's been brilliant as well. They just continue to defy the odds. They get people in that, similarly to probably like Peterborough, but on a much smaller scale for me, and they do it really well. And yeah, for me, it'd be absolutely wonderful if they got in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, I think. So go on.
No, I just think Sean said that he was there at the weekend, and John was saying as well, the small sort of squad is having its effect on us. And I think with the amount of games they've got to go and the importance of those games, fingers crossed, I'd like to see them up there as well. But I just think it would just be a bit too much for them, which would be a shame, because you question whether they'll do it again next season. But let's see how the season pans out. They could find their second wind and push on again.
Absolutely.
Talking about sort of players and what sort of effect they have, we'll talk about sort of the best players this season so far, because it's a weird time to do the first show midway through a season, but it's also a good time because we sort of build up our knowledge of players and get wowed by certain players. So we'll start off with top goal scorers. We've got Clark Harris at Peterborough, 21 in 30. Charlie White scoring, I think he scored all 18 the other week, didn't he, against Doncaster? He scored 4 the other day. And Jeff Cott at Plymouth, 16 in 27. In terms of out-and-out goal scorers, is Dembele sort of the best player you've seen this season, Matt, or have you seen a sort of a better striker in the division?
I'd give another honourable mention to Dion Charles in there as well. He's got 12 this season for Accrington Stanley, one of the unfashionable clubs, so I'd mention him. But for me, again, I don't want to, bang the Peterborough drum too much, but Johnson Clark-Harris is miles in front of everyone, what I've seen. The goals he scored against us, first one was a poacher's goal, the second one was a back-heeled volley. There's, 90% of the players in this division don't even try that, let alone pull it off. And 1.25 million suddenly looks a steal, doesn't it? And he'll probably go for 5, 6, 7, 8 million if he's called upon to go and play somewhere else. But chances are, if they get promoted, they'll probably hang on to him and see if he can go and cut it in the Championship. And I think he's done well there because he had a point to prove. I think he left there as a kid, didn't he, and dropped into League Two with Oldham. Don't hold me to that. That might not be correct. And then he's obviously gone back a few years later, and he's a completely different animal. And he's got everything that you want in terms of a League One striker. He can hold it up. He can run in behind. He's not, he's not out and out quick, but he's no slouch. He covers the ground well. And biggest thing is he knows where the back of the net is. And if he's got a chance in the penalty area, 9 times out of 10, it's at least hitting the target. So he's given himself a chance, and that's why he's got 21, and that's why he's 3 in front of everybody else. But Jeffcott's done really well stepping up from League Two and getting as many as he has. And Charlie Wyke, I think, needs credit because I think a lot of the Sunderland fan base probably wanted him out after the first 2 seasons, but they've stuck with him, and finally Lee Johnson's found a system to get balls into him, and he's reintegrated Aidan McGeady, and that's had a massive effect. And like I think you mentioned, Tom, that game the other week, was it Wyke scored them all? They was all 4 headers, and they was all assisted by Aidan McGeady's left foot. So,
yep.
Sunderland, another team that shouldn't be in this division, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, they've gone through some difficult times, haven't they? But they've still got some pearlers of players.
Yeah.
And Wyke and McGeady, like you said, they're too good for League One, and consistently could start in the Championship still, in my opinion. Ben, in terms of strikers, other than sort of Clark-Harris, who's let's say other than Clark-Harris, Charlie Wyke and Jeff Gott, who have you been impressive this season? And don't say Ched Evans.
I'll go for Joe Piggott. Now, Joe Piggott, I remember watching him in Joey Barton's first game, actually, and he beat us 1-0, and he scored the goal, and they got him out from non-league. I think it was like St Albans or Bishop Stansbury, something like that. It was Southern. I can't pronounce.
That was Maidstone. It was Maidstone United.
Maidstone. I knew it was from down south. So, but again, 13 goals this year, which is an incredible return for a side that are struggling, that hardly score goals. He's got 4 assists as well, and very, very good player. 9%, 19% goal conversion. So he is having shots on target. He is their main man, but he scores goals in a struggling side that are, are fighting for the bottom 4. They've changed manager, and he's still scoring goals. And for me, a goal every 187 minutes, if that's just over a goal in every 2 games, if you can keep that up, you're getting 20, 22 goals a season from a side that will probably score under 50 goals. So if he can contribute 50% of their goals, where would Wimbledon be without him? So
I think he is, Ben, just to interject, because I did my match preview because we played him last week, and I had a look at Joe Piggott in detail, and I think it was 46% or 44% of their goals scored this season. Joe Piggott's got them.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Because I remember doing a show at the start of the year, and I think it was 42% at the time that he scored. But he's an unbelievable player. They've got decent players around him, in midfield, decent defensive line. They signed. They are a bit like Accrington, and they have to skimp and scave and bring players in that probably nobody else wants. So what a signing he's been for Maidstone, and I really believe that he could go on and play in the Championship. Look at that, Max Waters, who was at Crawley, he's now at Cardiff. So if he can go up to the Championship, why can't Joe Piggott?
Yeah, some good shouts, some awesome players we've seen this season. We've just had a comment come in the chat. I don't know if it's going to be bringing it up. Yeah, so we're going to skip a couple of sections and focus on this because I think it's a really good question. So, who do you think will get top 2 and the playoffs? I'll go over to you first, Ben.
Top 2, it changes every day, but I honestly believe it'll be the Peterborough and Lincoln now. I just think the form that Peterborough are on, if you can keep winning games, the football stay consistently, they'll do it. Lincoln, very all-round squad, although a bit, only 1 winning 5 of late. They've only lost 1, to be fair, so it's not like they're doing badly. That was in the last game. The playoffs, Hull will be in there. They always normally react quite bad to a couple of defeats. I know around Christmas, they lost 3 in a row to Shrewsbury, Portsmouth and Blackpool. They'll be in there. Portsmouth will be in there. Sunderland will be in there. Sunderland on fire at the moment. And my last place, I'm going to give it to Blackpool. I hate saying it. I am going to give it to Blackpool. The way they are playing is, one of the best away forms in the league at the moment. The winning games of football at home. We've only conceded 5 goals, I think, this year. I think I saw, which is an unbelievable stat. Great defensively. Neil Critchley's really turned them around, and that's one that you don't start well. And you give him an opportunity, and look what the job he's done. He's turned that football club around from the first 10 games. It was always going to take time for a side that brought 17, 19 players and then let 21 out. Blackpool will be my 6th, though. It'll be pretty much the same, but Blackpool instead of Doncaster. I think Ipswich could just miss out.
Yeah, it's a good shout. And Sean agrees. If he has gone Posh, Lincoln, Sunderland, Pompey, Hull and Blackpool. I think... For me, I agree with Sean. The top 2, I can't really decide other than Posh, but it's going to be a mixture of what Sean's put up, I believe.
Come on, give us an answer.
Do you know what? I'll put Sunderland in 2nd place. I think they
pick my answer now. I think Sunderland as well. I just think Charlie White's goals and the fact that I've just looked at their form, they've only lost 1 in their last 9, and that's against a very much improved Shrewsbury side. I think they're flying, and I think if they keep Charlie White, you've got to think this is a team that have only just got Aidan McGeady. Isn't he like the most assists in the division? And he's only been back for a month or 2. Yeah. And Chris Maguire as well. I mean, he scored an half-decent tap-in at the weekend, and he's hardly played, so they've got plenty of ability. So I'd agree with you. I'd go Posh and Sunderland as the top 2.
Yeah,
10 assists in 14 it is.
Yeah, they've got too many good players. And you think this season, assists, you got Ward at Peterborough, no wonder they're scoring so many goals. Honeyman at Hull, McGeady, you've just mentioned, at 10, who got 9 of those against Doncaster. Dembele as well. Not only has he scored, not only it's assisting all over the place as well. So they're not only free throw and scoring, their front 3 are working really well together. And he's got 9 assists. In terms of clean sheets, Lincoln, reason they're 2nd. 13 clean sheets, Sunderland 12 clean sheets, and Blackpool up there with 11 clean sheets. Mentions to McGilvery at Pompey, Amos at Charlton as well have both got the same as Maxwell, but Maxwell's played less games. So the teams that are up there doing the jobs right at the both ends of the table. But I think Sunderland have got too much quality, and as you say, the tap-in on the weekend, even the first goal was unbelievable. Crewe are a good side, and it just shows them going 2-0 down. I think Sunderland of old would have crumbled that match, and to come back was superb, and it must have felt like a win to them, and they'll go into tomorrow's match sort of flying. So we'll take a look at we've got a comment coming in here. Cook will get Ipswich into 2nd.
Oof.
Wow, that's a massive shout from Chris. For me, no, I think, I don't know, if Cook does take over, he will get him playing, and that's why I can't really decide the playoffs at the moment. But I don't know if they'll get 2nd. I think they're a bit too far away now. I don't think they'll slip up that much. But
I think they've got a great chance in the playoffs. For me, the last playoff space is maybe them or Oxford. I think Oxford are in a decent run. I know they lost to Portsmouth, but they were really unlucky. I listened to, like I say, James is an Oxford fan who runs a D3, D4 podcast, and he said they was really unlucky. And again, they're another side that looks like they've got good players all over the park. I think they took a while to recover from losing Rob Dickey in the summer, and since then they've settled down, and Carl Robinson knows this division inside out. He's got out of it with MK Dons. He's got out of it with Charlton, I think, as well. So I'm going to go for the same lot, apart from Ipswich or Oxford to finish 6th.
Yeah, okay. I was toying with them. I was toying with Ipswich or Oxford, because Oxford, no way to score goals, don't they? They're very good to watch. And Carl Robinson, he's one of the best managers in League One, in my opinion. The job he's done at MK Dons. And now Oxford didn't do too greatly at Charlton, but still did okay. It's going to be between those 3 sides.
Right, I'm going to ask you a very quick fire question. I'll start off. The best teams we've seen all season. My one's a bit weird, and it's not because he's in the room, but for me, Blackpool haven't conceded loads of goals this season. They've never been heavily beaten, apart from Ipswich at home when we were playing some poor football. So I'll give a good performance to Ipswich that match. But the team that impressed me the most in terms of League One football was Gillingham. Lost 2-0 at their ground. It's very streetwise. Wasn't a very nice game. But you could just see the way that Steve Evans got them working and how they worked as a team. And I think that lived and sort of breathed how Gillingham sort of play and how they want to play, maybe with a bit more football and being played sort of throughout the season. And I think with a couple of good quality signings and without the injury, they could push themselves up there as well. So for me, it's Gillingham. What about you, Ben?
Best side I've seen. I'll be honest with you, the top sides against us have been poor. Peterborough were poor when we played them. I'm going to go for Crewe. I'm going to go for a different one. We only drew with Crewe, but they had that fight where they kept going and going and going. And Dave Artell is a very streetwise manager. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. I think he's done a fantastic job. They've won more than they've lost. They're pretty much in the top half of the table. So I'm going to go for Crewe, the way they play. And it's going to be an interesting game when we play them at Highbury later on in the season. And they were near enough in the playoffs when we played them on Boxing Day, Joe Barton's last game.
Matt?
I think I've already mentioned it. Lincoln, in terms of the most complete 11 I've seen, I think they've got good players all over the park. Defensively, they're really good. The keeper keeps loads of clean sheets. They've got Liam Bridcut, the captain, who knows how to win games. He comes from the Championship. He's played for Leeds. George Grant, phenomenal goal scorer in midfielder. The lad Morgan Rogers is probably a cheat code at this level. He was an absolute joke at our place the other week on the telly. And so in terms of most complete for me, it's Peterborough, but Lincoln. But like I said, in terms of ceiling and how high they can go and how good they can be when they're at it, it's Peterborough by absolute miles. That, like I say, that was a completely different game. We say it, and it's a cliche game of two halves, but they were ordinary, like Ben mentioned, first half against us, and then they flick a switch, and they looked like they was going to score literally every time they got the ball into our half. And at the end, I'll probably say 3-1 was probably a decent result for us in the end, because they absolutely battered the second period, and they're going to do it to better teams than Gillingham. So for me, it's got to be, I know it's obvious because they're right up there, but yeah, for me, it's them too.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. When we had Neil on the show, he said we're just not quite clicking yet, and when we do, it could be scary. So I think his prediction was correct, and it's a shame he can't sort of talk us through that. But we'll take a look at this weekend's. Tomorrow's fixtures. There's a lot on, so we're just going to get them up, and we can sort of talk through tomorrow's fixtures. So we've got Gillingham, MK Dons, Wigan, Charlton. I think if Charlton needs to pick up a result, it needs to be tomorrow, doesn't it? Accrington, Ipswich is going to be interesting to see how Ipswich react to their news. Blackpool have got Crewe. That's a very interesting game at Bloomfield Road. Burton have won 4 out of their last 5. They've got Bristol Rovers. Now, again, that's going to be a really good game of football, with Joey picking up his first win last game. Doncaster, Portsmouth, another interesting one. I think Portsmouth will nick that. Hull, Rochdale, Lincoln, Fleetwood. I'm sorry, you're going to lose 3 points tomorrow, Ben.
Thanks, Tom.
Northampton, Plymouth, Oxford, Peterborough, Shrewsbury, Wimbledon, and Sunderland and Swindon. Gill's not playing.
Here we are. MK Dons, you said it first.
That's because it's at the top. Must have
The only
forgotten.
time Gills will be top, Matt?
You're about where you are in the table, in fairness, looking at that. Bottom third.
For me,
Bit too high.
Gentlemen.
But the only time you're level with Lincoln as well.
Oh,
For me, the most interesting games, I think Ipswich Accrington's a really interesting match. Blackpool and Crewe, and sort of the third one probably is going to be the Bristol Rovers match, because Burton are flying at the moment. They're going to be at home, and Joey's going to pick up his second win as well. Ben, your thoughts on tomorrow's fixtures? What's the standout for you?
there's lots of games, isn't there? And Oxford United against Peterborough, I'm going to go for. Oxford were flying a few weeks ago. They lost to Portsmouth, very unlucky too. And, been unlucky in previous weeks. Peterborough flying, won the last 6, won 8 out of the last 10. Only lost 1 in 14. Unbelievable form. I think that's normally a game Peterborough slip up in and, lose 1-0 or lose 2-1. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 Peterborough winning that one. I think this is their year and they've just got to stay consistent. If they can get maybe an 8 or 9 point gap, I think they'll be okay. And I think a Peterborough win tomorrow. I think that's going to be the standout game. 2 good sides, 2 good managers, 2 very good, entertaining footballing sides that score goals at this level.
Matt, standout fixtures for you?
I don't know whether it'd be the best game in terms of a spectacle, but I think intriguing is that Accrington-Ipswich game for the reasons you've just mentioned. Obviously, we've mentioned Accrington earlier on in the video, and we've said that do they have enough to stay in and around the playoffs? And we think it'd be wonderful if they could. I think it'd be a good gauge, especially if they announce tomorrow, Ipswich, that Paul Cook's the manager. Whether he has much to do with the team selection will probably not have much of an effect on the game. But I think if Accrington could get a positive result, the belief goes through the roof again that they can compete with these teams in and around them and in towards the top 6. And if Ipswich could go there and win, you flip it round the other way and suddenly they get the belief that they can gate crash the top 6. So I think that's an intriguing one that could have a big say in where the 2 teams ultimately do end up finishing. Like Ben said, the standout one in terms of the quality teams being paired is probably Oxford, Peterborough. I think the Gills MK Dons one, from a buyer's point of view, is an intriguing one as well, in the sense that it's going to be two completely contrasting sides. We're going to be direct and we'll get it into a Kindy and or Oliver and then play from there and get second balls and try and get runners in behind. And MK Dons will try and pass us to death. So that could be an interesting watch. And it'd be fun to see which sort of method comes out on top if any side does manage to win it.
Yeah, Tim's just mentioned here, Ben. Lincoln, on the other hand, won't need luck nailed on home win.
You know something? I don't think I've ever been this sure that we're going to lose a game of football in my 8 years of supporting Fleetwood, and that says a lot. So, but when I remember going and playing Hull this year, I was negative going in my stream and said, "Oh, we're going to lose 4-1. We won 4-1. So tomorrow we're going to lose 2-0.
Okay. So I'm going to finish up on one comment before we say our goodbyes. It's been a really decent first show, so thank you both. One final question coming in from Josh Lane. Who do you think will get relegated?
I can't see Wigan getting out now, unfortunately. I think if they was going to have a takeover and a new manager properly, so I think, unfortunately, they're probably gone. Northampton seem to be just dallying with no manager again. Sorry, Ben, I've taken over.
Oh, don't worry, Matt.
So I'll go Northampton. We're going to stay where they are. I think Wimbledon are really struggling. If you stop Joe Piggott from scoring, you stop Wimbledon from scoring. I'm going to have to put Rochdale in as well, because I had them at the beginning of the season. So the only difference I had at the beginning of the season was Wigan out, and because I thought they might have a takeover, and I had Shrewsbury in. But obviously then they got rid of miserable Sam Ricketts football and have replaced him with Steve Cotterill, and I think we need to wish him well as well, because it was announced today that he's back in hospital with pneumonia, which is to do with all this long COVID. So all the best to Steve Cotterill from me and from all of you, I'd imagine, as well. So yeah, for me it's Rochdale, Wimbledon, Wigan and Northampton.
Yeah, I agree. Rochdale are down. I think this is the worst they've ever been. I think BBM, Barry Brian Murphy's in, tremendous trouble there. They're conceding goals to fun, where they were scoring goals, weren't they? And now that stopped. Wigan, I like their attitude. I like the way they don't give in, and they go to the end. They're down, in my opinion. Northampton down, and I also think Wimbledon will go down. I think Bristol Rovers have enough to stay up. I think Burt will have enough to stay up. I think Swindon, they picked up a couple of good results of late, haven't they? Won a couple, got a couple of good points, where before they'd only won 2 games in 8. So I agree with Matt's selection. Those 4 will go down for me.
Spot on. I think foremost.
It's a boring pod. No one's going to listen if we all agree with each other every week, are they?
No, I put Sunderland in second, but I think for me, Northampton, Wigan and Wimbledon are already down. And I think Burton, with the current run of form they're on, and with Bristol, Joey at Bristol, I just think everyone's going to have a bit too much for Rochdale, who seem to be in free for all. So for me, that's they take over. What's their face? Burton over leapfrog Rochdale, and that's how the bottom 4 will finish. We're going to they've made a good effort of it, but they're just not consistent enough with the mess of their club at the moment. So fingers crossed they can get taken over and make a better crack of it in League 2 if they do go down.
Definitely.
It's been a very good show, hasn't it? And it's been really nice to reflect on the week's action. Hopefully next week, like I say, guys, if you are new to this and you do enjoy the podcast, you know what to do. Give it a like, give it a subscription, and hopefully we can keep it going and talking about positive League One action. And maybe next week Fleetwood might have won a game. I don't think the world's that good right now for Fleetwood to win a game. I don't think there's enough luck involved.
We're going to have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of fixtures tomorrow and a lot of fixtures on the weekend to come next week. We're going to have a lot to talk about. I'm going to say our goodbyes now. So, Ben, thank you very much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Tom, and been a pleasure as always. And thank you to Matt for coming on as well. I think he's been a great insight and very knowledgeable. Cheers, guys. No, I've really enjoyed it. Like I say, I appreciate you getting me on, and fingers crossed it becomes a regular thing and we can do this every week. So awesome. Well, if you've enjoyed the show, like Ben said earlier, please like and subscribe to the Seasiders Podcast, and obviously Cod's Vlogs and Gills In The Blood. Give us as much following as possible if you want to hear all the latest footballing news to do with our teams. We're going to host on this channel for a few more weeks and launch the third tier channel as well. But please continue to keep liking and subscribing on Twitter and Instagram to help us grow. And we'll talk all things League One in the future. Good night. Thank you, guys.